Hey guys, it's your friend Ryan Kariba from Ryan KRB Gaming and Ship Historian. Today, as you can see, I am wearing formal enough. As we get closer and closer, I have changed my way of dressing. So today, we'll be looking at a new ship. As you know, we continue with our research on the RMS. We continued with the research. We looked at the RMS Lusitania, the Mauritania, and now today we are looking at a different type of ship. This is their sister ship, and this is their last sister ship, the RMS Aquitania. So let's get into this video, and here we go. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to our research and this channel. Today we'll be looking at this magnificent ocean liner, the RMS Aquitania. She will be a very interesting thing to look at. Let's begin. The RMS Aquitania was a British ocean liner of the Cunard Line in service from 1914 to 1950. So we can see that it served more years than her predecessors, the RMS Mauritania and Lusitania. She was designed by Leonard Pesquet and built by John Brown and Company in Clydebank, Scotland. She was launched on 21st April 1913 and sailed on her maiden voyage from Liverpool to New York on 30th May 1914. She was the third in the Cunard Line's grand trio of express liners, RMS Mauritania and Lusitania, and was the last surviving four-funneled ocean liner. Shortly after Aquitania entered service, World War I broke out, during which she was converted into an auxiliary cruiser before being used as a troop transport and a hospital ship, notably as part of the Dandalis campaign. So we've gotten a bit of the perspective of what we are about to look at, but let's go deep into this ship, deep into it. First, we go to her conception. The origins of Aquitania lay in the rivalry between the White Star Line and Cunard Line, Britain's two leading shipping companies. The White Star Line's Olympic, Titanic, and the upcoming Britannic were larger than the latest Cunard ships, Mauritania and Lusitania, by 15,000 gross registered tons. The Cunard duo were significantly faster than the White Star ships, while White Star's ships were seen as more luxurious. Cunard needed another liner for its weekly transatlantic express service and elected to copy the White Star Line's Olympic-class model with a slower but larger and more luxurious ship. The plan for the building of that liner began in 1910. Several draft plans were conceived in order to determine the main axis of what should be the ship, for which an average speed of 24 knots was planned. In July of that year, the company launched the construction offers to several shipyards before choosing John Brown and Company, the builder of the Lusitania. The company chose Aquitania as the name for its new ship, in continuity with those of its two previous duos. The three ships were named respectively after the ancient province Roman provinces Lusitania, Mauritania, and Gallia, Aquitania. We now move to the design, construction, and launch of this ship. Let me just change the pictures so that you can see very well. Yes, as you can see on this left side, you can see the RMS Aquitania before I launch. Aquitania was designed by Cunard's naval architect Leonard Pesquet, as we had seen. He drew a plan for a larger and wider vessel than Lusitania and Mauritania, about 40 meters longer or 130 feet. With 4 large funnels, the ships will resemble the famous speed duo, but Pesquet also designed the superstructure with glass-tin touches from the smaller Carmania, a ship he also designed. Another design feature from Carmania was the addition of two tall forward deck ventilator cowlings. Although the ship's outward dimensions were greater than that of Olympic, her displacement and tonnage were lower. With Aquitania's keel being laid at the end of 1910, experienced Pesquet took a voyage on Olympic in 1911 so as to experience the feel of a ship reaching nearly 50,000 tons, as well as to copy pointers for his company's new vessel. Aquitania was built solely with Cunard funds. Pesquet designed her according to British Admiralty specifications. She was built in John Brown's company yards in Clydebank, where majority of the Cunard ships were built. The keel was laid in the same plot where Lusitania had been built, and would later be used on the superliners, the Queen Mary, the Queen Elizabeth, and the Queen Elizabeth II. Like Mauritania, the hull was painted in a light grey color, as we can see in this photographic I have obtained from my sources for photographic purposes, and a common practice of the day, as we had mentioned in the previous video. Her hull was painted to black in dry dock. In the wake of Titanic's sinking, Aquitania was one of the first new ships to carry enough lifeboats for all passengers and crew. I repeat, in the wake of Titanic's sinking, Aquitania was one of the first few ships to carry enough lifeboats for all passengers and crew. 80 lifeboats, including 2 motorized launches with Macroni wireless equipment, were carried in both Swan Neck and newer Welling type davits. There was also a double hull and watertight compartment that were designed to allow the ship to float with 5 compartments flooded. As required by the British Admiralty, she was designed to be converted into an armed merchant cruiser and was reinforced to mount guns for service in that role. The ship displaced approximately 49,430 tons, of which the hull accounted for 29,150 tons, machinery 9,000 tons, and bunkers 6,000 tons. She was launched on 21st April after being christened by Alice Stanley, the Countess of Derby, and fitted out over the next 13 months. Notable installations were electrical wiring and decorations. The fitting was led by Arthur Joseph Davis and his associate Charles Mewis. On 10th May 1914, she was tested in her sea trials. But just before we go to the sea trials, let me just go to the decorations of how she was supposed to look. Let me just display them. Just a moment. Just One moment. As I load my pictures, let me just... Okay, this is, as you can see in the left picture, shows this is the kitchen that was to be on board the Aquitania. You can see the shelves. I'm not sure if that's turkey or chicken. Maybe you can comment down below what you think. Okay, the next one, this is the drawing of the first class smoking room on the RMS Aquitania. You can see how they are carefully designed. You see artwork laying the chandelier on top there, the dome-shaped ceiling there you can see up, and also the beautiful chairs that had been set. Truly was spectacular. Let me just go down here. Here you can see the drawing of the gallery area where people would maybe go to see artwork. Look out through the window. You can see the way artwork laid in a nice manner, and a pillowcase sat on the chair. That chair would have been very comfortable. The nice blue carpet mimicking the color of the sofa set. Truly it would be a nice thing to look at. Also, there is another picture I would like. Yes, here on the right side. Let me just display the image so that we can see it clearly. Just a moment. Yes, you can see this is the first class lounge on the Aquitania. I can even imagine seeing Harry Tate. Most of you may know him if you know your history. Harry Tate may have been sitting somewhere here. You can see chairs perfectly set. People would be busy talking in and about the days or about their lives, how they include. Let's move on to the next part of the interior. I have specialized in generating nice photos from the actual pictures taken from the Aquitania. These pictures are true, not simulated, not even a bit simulated. These are true pictures. You can see here on the it has disappeared. Sorry for that. I'll try and get them back. We seem to be experiencing some technical difficulties. Let's just wait until it loads. So as I finish the design and construction and launch, let me just do with the ship's sea trials a bit. As she was tested in her sea trials on 10th May 1914 and steamed at 1 full knot over the expected speed. On 14th May, she reached Mersey and stayed at a port there for 15 days, during which she underwent a final major cleaning and finishing in preparation for a maiden voyage. I think the pictures... it seems the pictures have not yet loaded. Let me just seems we're experiencing some... So as we wait for the pictures to reload again, let me talk about her technical aspects. She was the first Cunard line to have a length in excess of 900 feet. Well, 900 feet at that time was a lot, because later in the year 1936, the Queen Mary exceeded 1,000 feet. And we all know the size of that. You can, if you live near California, in California, I think there's somewhere you can, Long Beach, yes. They show where the Queen Mary lies as a floating hotel. It seems we are experiencing challenges with the pictures. Let me just try and get them back, since we need these pictures so as to explain deeper. As the proverb says, a picture can tell many words. Let's see. Give me just a few moments. Let me just load. Let me just load the last pictures. I think they are here. Let me just see. Okay, technical. She was, as I said, she was the first Cunard line to have a length in excess of 900 feet. Unlike some funneled ships such as White Star Line's Olympic class ocean liners, Aquitania did not have a dummy funnel. What's a dummy funnel? This meant each funnel was utilized in venting smoke from the ship's boilers. The steam was provided by 21 forced draft double-ended Scotch boilers. We've got the pictures. That's the view of the second class. But as I was talking, this was the launch. Where is it? So I can show you. Okay. Let's see. Okay, let's go through this. Let me just show you the funnels. That should display. As you can see, the funnels on this ocean line, they made steam pass behind. They were slightly bent. This meant that the steam would go back well. Let me just switch to my camera so that you can see me. This meant that the steam or the smoke would come out this way, because the funnels were bent as if like this. So pretend my head is the outer part where the steam should come out. So the steam, instead of disturbing the passengers or causing respiratory issues, it would go behind, then follow the after until it would dissipate into the atmosphere. So I hope you got that part. Let's move on to the next part. Let me just go back to the pictures. It seems I don't have pictures of the steam turbines, but I do have the propellers. Let me just switch to that. The propellers. Steam, as the steam was provided by the Scotch boilers. They having 8 furnaces each that were 6.7 meters long or 22 feet with a diameter of 17 feet and 8 inches, 5.4 meters if you want to convert that, arranged in 4 boiler rooms. Each boiler room had a 7 ash expeller with pump capacity of approximately 4,500 tons per hour that could also be used as emergency bilge pumps. Steam drove Parsons turbines in 3 separate engine rooms in a triple expansion system for 4 shafts. The port engine room contained the high pressure head, 240 tons, 40 feet, 2 inches or 12.2 meters long with 4-stage expansion and a stern turbine, 120 knots, 22 feet, 11 inches or 7.7 meters long for the port shaft. The center room contained 2 low-pressure turbines with a head and a stern capability with single casings, 54 feet 3 inches or 16.5 meters long, 9 expansion stages in a head turbine, 4 in a stern turbine. For the center shaft and starboard room contained intermediate pressure head turbines, 41 feet 6.5 inches, 12.7 meters long, and a high pressure stern turbine, twin of the port high pressure turbine for the starboard shaft. The electrical plant located on G deck below the waterline consisted of 400 kilowatts British Westinghouse generator sets generating 225 volt direct current with emergency power provided by diesel driven 30 kilowatt generator up on the promenade deck. Power was provided for about 10,000 lamps and about 180 electric motors. She also had a brass triple-chambered 3-chime steam whistles on the first and second funnel. I don't think, if you can see well, you can see that steam funnel on, I think that is for the third. I think this first on the first, but it's behind. Okay, we've looked at the interior. I won't look a lot since of the time capability we have here. Let me just talk about a bit on the passenger capacity of how she could take. In 1914, Aquitania had the capacity to carry 3,220 passengers, 618 first class, 614 second class, 2,004 third class. You see, this is a big capacity compared to the Titanic, which carried about 2,208 souls on board. If you can look closely, these are the photographs of Olympic athletes who are on the Aquitania during on a visit towards the America, but let's go after that. After the refit in 1926, we'll go there soon, the figure was reduced to 610 in first class, 950 in second class, and 640 in tourist class. She mentioned that she would have a capacity of 972 crew members, but the ship sometimes carried 1,100 souls. As I've shown you in the interiors, we can see this one on the left. Let's not just go through them quickly. Oh, these were the steam turbines I was talking about. The propellers, I mean. These were the propellers that drove this massive vessel. Okay, let's go deep a bit. This is where people usually maybe on the boat deck. These are the interiors. First class dining saloon. You can see this one very clearly in the left side. And let me go. There you can see 2 passengers looking out on the promenade deck. They had a chair. There you see Cecil Chubbs. You can do further research and look at in her life. You can see there the building of the theater where people used to go and watch movies. The first class lounge we had looked earlier. So the first class smoking room, the first class galley. So it seems we've looked at mostly what was, yes, this is another picture defining the compartments. And you can see here the first site of the new world that will go there soon. I think it's done here. The swimming pool, that swimming baths, let's just go through them a bit, so that the grand staircase on board the board that during her construction that was being. So I think we can move to the next part. We can go to the early career and World War One. Then we can go through it very nicely. Let's just get into it now. Let's go. Okay. Aquitania's maiden voyage was under the command of Captain William Turner on 30th May 1914, with arrival in New York on 5th June. The voyage and arrival in New York received great attention. Just to go back to Captain William Turner, we remember in the Lusitania video, he was the captain during when she was torpedoed, and also it looks like he took the Aquitania later. So the voyage and arrival in New York was received with great attention. 15 days later, the German liner SS Vaterland, being the largest ship in the world at the time, was put into service. In the eye of the press, this maiden voyage was a matter of national prestige. However, this event was overshadowed by the sinking of the RMS Empress of Ireland in Quebec in the previous day, with over 1,000 drowned. However, no passenger cancelled their voyage aboard the Lusitania despite the strong emotion aroused by this sinking. During her maiden voyage, the ship carried around 1,055 passengers, about a third of her total capacity. This was because the superstition pushed some away from traveling on a ship's maiden voyage. The crossing fully satisfied the crew and the company. The average speed for the voyage, a distance of 3,181 nautical miles, or 5,891 kilometers, about a three-quarter of the size of crossing the African continent. Measured from Liverpool to Amber Rose Channel Lightship, was 23.1 knots, taking into account a 5-hour stop due to fog and the proximity of icebergs. The ship briefly managed to exceed 25 knots. Her coal consumption was lower than her predecessors. Many passengers enjoyed the voyage. On the return ship, a success was renewed by carrying 2,649 passengers, which was recorded for a British liner leaving New York, which was the new record. Upon arrival at home port, she underwent minor modifications, and 2 more round trips took place in the second half of June and the whole of July. In total, she carried 11,208 passengers traveled on the ship during the first 6 crossings. Her career was abrupted by the darkest times in one of history, World War One. So, the following month, Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria was assassinated, and the world was plunged into World War One. Aquitania, just completing less than 10 crossings, was now entered into service as a merchant cruiser on 5th August 1914, of which provision was being made in her design. On 8th August, having been rid of of decorative elements and armed with guns, she was sent on patrol. On 22nd August, she collided with a liner named Canadian. Shortly after, the Admiralty found that large liners were too expensive to operate as cruisers. On 30th September, she was repaired, disarmed, and returned to the Cunardine. After being idle for a time in the spring of 1915, she was recalled by the Admiralty and converted in a troop ship and made voyages to Dandalais, sometimes running alongside Britannic and or Mauritania. Around 30,000 men were transported on the ship to the battlefield between May and August of that year. Unfortunately, as we know, in May, the Lusitania was sank by a German U-boat, and later, Aquitania was later converted into a hospital ship and acted in that role during the Dandalais campaign. In 1916, the year that White Star Line's flagship and one of Aquitania's main rivals was sunk by a mine off the coast of Kia. Britannic was sunk, Aquitania was now returned to the trooping front, and then in 1917 she was laid up in Solent. In 1918, now under the command of James Charles, the ship was back on the high seas in troop ship service, conveying North American troops to Britain. Many of these departures were from the port of Halifax, Nova Scotia, where the ship's dazzle paint scheme was captured by artists and photographs including Antonio Jacobsen. On one occasion, Aquitania transported over 8,000 men. During her 9 voyages, she transported approximately 8,000 men. During this period, she collided with the USS Shore and tore apart its bow. The accident killed a dozen members of the American ship's crew. Well, if we can go, we can look at the troop ship livery she was painted in. If I can get it here in just a moment. No need to worry, I have... no, not that one. Yes, here. She was being repainted in her troop ship livery. There you can see it. Then there, these are African soldiers who are... Oh, we are not yet there. Sorry. I'm taking you. Yes, this is another transport livery she was put in. And also, let's think. There she was carrying the 7th boys during the war. I think those are the only pictures we have of the war. Sorry to say, Aquitania was not captured more during the war. After the end of the war in December 1918, Aquitania was dismissed from military service. She collided with another ship, the British cargo ship Lord Dufferin at New York in the United States on 28 February 1919. Lord Dufferin sank and Aquitania rescued her crew. Lord Dufferin was later refloated and beached. We now move to her interwar career. Her interwar career, where she went through one of the most exciting times in the Cunards. In June 1919, Aquitania ran a Cunard Australian service between Southampton and New York. I think I have it here. Yes, where is it? Yes, here. This is in that picture on the right side, you can see Aquitania leaving Southampton. In December of that year, Aquitania was docked at the Armstrong Whitworth Yards in Newcastle to be refitted for a post-war service. The ship was converted from coal burner to oil-fired, which greatly reduced the number of engine room crew required. The original fitting and art pieces removed when refitting for military service were brought out of storage and reinstalled. At some point during this time, a new wheelhouse was constructed above the original one, as the officers had complained about the visibility over the ship's bow. The second wheelhouse can be seen in later pictures of the era, and the original second wheelhouse can be seen in later pictures. In the 1920s, Aquitania resumed her commercial service on 17th July 1920, leaving from Liverpool with 2,433 passengers on board. The crossing was a success. The ship maintained good speed while showing that now oil fuel was much cheaper than coal fuel propulsion. The ship's arrival in New York Harbor was filmed as part of the pioneering 1921 documentary Manhattan, in which she is seen being pushed to her destination by tugboats. The months that followed were just as promising despite a steward strike in May 1921. At the beginning of the decade, Aquitania was the only large liner in the service of Cunard Line, as the Mauritania was undergoing repair after a fire, which we had seen in the previous video, and I had said that the Aquitania took part in helping carrying passengers during that time. The year 1921 was thus an exceptional year for her. She broke a record by transporting 60,000 passengers that year. In the following year, the Mauritania rejoined in Cunard service. Aquitania operated in service with the Mauritania and the new liner, returning the big trio back to our original time. I'm nearly crying. The new ship from the German liner. This new ship was referred by the British, the Berengaria, formerly known by Germany as the SS Imperator, in a trio which returned them to being known the Big Three. It is such a nice thing to know. In 1924, a new restriction on immigration was passed in the United States, causing the number of third-class passengers to decline significantly. But from about 26,000 third-class passengers transported by Aquitania in 1921, the figure fell to about 8,200 third-class passengers in 1925. The number of crew was thus reduced to around 850 people from the original 1,200. The third class was no longer the key to the profitability of the liner, and so the company had to adapt. Third class gradually became a tourist class which offered decent service at a low price. In 1926, the ship underwent a major overhaul which reduced the passenger capacity from 3,300 to around 2,200. Still, the Cunard line benefited from prohibition in the United States, which started in 1919. Why don't we take this moment to say a welcome to my friend here? Let me just bring her here. Say hi to them. Say hi to them. Hi. Hi. So this is our cat. You can see how she's behaving in a quiet manner. She was just sleeping here, dozing off. But she'll just wave to you. Say hi to them. Say hi. Say hi. Okay. Okay, bye. Bye bye. She'll be in the next. She'll be featured in other videos if possible. So you can say hi to them. Hi, 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 hi there. Hi, hi, hi. Yeah, yeah. Say hi. Yeah, yeah. Okay, okay. Get back to your nap. I'll return her. She was just napping here a bit. Okay, okay, okay. Can as she leaves, she really likes you. I can tell. Okay, let's go back to our previous what we were doing. So as I was saying, this ocean liner is truly magnificent. So after so now we move to the crisis of 1929 and its consequences. Following the stock market crash of 1929, many ships were affected by the economic downturn and reduced traffic. Aquitania found herself in a tough position. Only a few could afford expensive passage on her now. So Cunard sent Aquitania on cheap cruises to the Mediterranean. This was successfully, especially for Americans who went on booze cruises tired for their country's prohibition. Another problem also arose. The two liners, Nottingham Lloyd, SS Bremen, and SS Europa, successfully captured the Blue Ribbon and many customers. In 1934, the number of passengers carried declined to around 13,000 from 30,000 in 1929. The ship, however, remained popular and she was the third busiest in the early 30s, behind those two German liners. To keep the ship up to date, she underwent a refit which added a cinema between 1932 and 1933. At the same time, in order to modernize its fleet, the company ordered the Queen Mary. Now, with the Mauritania gone and the Aquitania slowly nearing her sentence to going out of service, it looked like it's over. But let's continue with the story. The Great Depression, however, prevented the company from being able to finance the construction, and the company merged with its rival, the White Star Line, in 1934 in order to do so, becoming the Cunard White Line. And the Queen Mary entered service in 1936. And from 1936 on, it began to squeeze and maximize speeding out the Aquitania in order to make her a suitable running mate for being one of the fastest. Sadly, Aquitania ran aground insolvent on 24th January 1934, but was refloated later the same day. The merge of the two companies into the Cunard White Star Line resulted in larger surplus of liner being owned by a single company. Thus, very old ships such as the Mauritania and the Olympic were removed from service and were sent to the scrapyard. However, Aquitania was not, despite of her age, old. On 10th April 1935, Aquitania went another aground, but this one was harder on Thornknoll in Solent near Southampton, England. But with the aid of 10 tugboats on the next high tide, the ship was free. When the new liner RMS Queen Elizabeth was due to enter service in 1940, newspapers speculated that Aquitania would later be scrapped that year. However, during that period of performance, her performance continued to satisfy the company. The year 1939 saw an increased number in the number of wealthy passengers on board. The ship was then already 26 years old. Now nearing her end, she was then sent to wait for in the scrapyard. But still, it was not yet over for this ship. There was still something else left for this ocean liner. she would be needed for another service. That's good again. World War II enters in 1939. Germany launches an invasion on Poland. Aquitania, with a normal troop transport capacity of 7,400, was among the selected group of large, fast former passenger ships capable of sailing independently without escort, transporting a large number of troops that were assigned worldwide as needed. These ships, often termed monsters until London requested as the term be dropped. The ships that were used during the troop transport included Aquitania, Queen Mary, Queen Elizabeth, Mauritania 2, repeat, Mauritania 2, not the RMS Mauritania, the RMS Mauritania 2, Ile-de-France, and New de Amsterdam, with lesser monsters being other large X-liners capable of independent sailing with large troop capacity that accounted for much of the troop capacity and deployment, particularly in the early days of the war. Aquitania's initial plans to replace Aquitania with the new Queen Elizabeth in 1940 had been forecasted by the outbreak of World War II in 1939. On 16 September 1939, Aquitania, awaiting initial refit as a troop transport, was at Pier 90 in New York, along with Queen Mary, while nearby at Pier 88 were the French ship Ile-de-France and the Normandy. She returned to Southampton and was requisitioned on 18th November. Aquitania's initial troop transport operation was taking Canadian troops to Scotland. Convoy TC-1 in company with Express of Britain, Express of Australia, Duchess of Bedford, Monarch of Bermuda, HMS Hood, HMS Waspite, HMS Barham, HMS Resolution, HMS Repulse, HMS Furious in December 1939. Meanwhile, a massive transport of Australian and New Zealand troops to Suez and North Africa, with possible diversions to the United Kingdom if events required, was in planning, with the number of convoys to be designated as US with the large Atlantic liners assigned role. The first convoy designated as US 3 was composed of Aquitania, the liners Queen Mary, Mauritania 2, Express of Britain, Express of Canada, Express of Japan, and Andes. Aquitania, Express of Britain, and Express of Japan, after embarking New Zealand troops at Wellington in May, sailed escorted by HMAS Canberra, HMAS, and HMNZS Linda to join Australian component of Sydney on 5th May 1940. Joined off Sydney by Queen Mary and Mauritania, the convoy sailed the same day to be joined by Empress of Canada from Melbourne for a stop at Fremantle 10th to 12th May before the voyage intended to be for Colombo, Sri Lanka. About midway to Colombo on 15th May, the convoy was rerouted due to rapid German penetrations into France, with the ultimate destination of Gourock, Scotland, via Cape Town, South Africa, and Freetown, Sierra Leone, where the escort strengthened by various ships including aircraft carriers HMS Hermes and HMS Argus, and the battle cruiser HMS Hood. The convoy arrived in Clyde and anchored off Gourock on 6 June 1940. Let me now move on let me show you the pictures of the UK transport, the ships. Yeah, the Queen Mary, you can see in the background with the three funnels. Queen Mary on the left, the Aquitania on the right. Now repainted in battleship grey in November 1941, Aquitania was in the British colony of Singapore, for which she sailed to take part indirectly in the loss of the Aquitania of the Australian cruiser HMAS Sydney. Sydney had engaged in battle with the German auxiliary cruiser Cormoran. There was much unsustained speculation that Cormoran was expecting Aquitania after spies in Singapore had notified Cormoran's crew of the liner sailing and planned to ambush her in the Indian Ocean west of Perth, but instead encountered Sydney on 19th November. Both ships were lost after a fierce battle. On the morning of 24th November, Aquitania en route to Sydney from Singapore spotted and picked up 26 survivors of the German ship, but maintained radio silence and did not pass a word until visual range of Wilson Promontory on 27th November. The captain had gone against orders not to stop for survivors of sinking. There were no survivors from Sydney. December was the outbreak of the war in the Pacific. The Japanese advances throughout Southeast Asia and towards Australia, necessitating the redeployment of defensive forces. On 28th December, Aquitania and two smaller transports departed Sydney with 4,150 Australian troops and 10,000 tons of equipment for Port Moresby, New Guinea. On the same date, USS Houston and other US ships evacuating from the north reached Darwin with USS Pensacola and elements of her diverted Philippine convoy of some 300 miles ahead, or 480 kilometers ahead. Aquitania was back in Sydney on 8th January 1942. This next effort was reinforced of Singapore and the Netherlands East Indies, with Aquitania transporting Australian troops, whose equipment was in convoy MS-1 and the single ship MS-2 convoy under escort of HMAS Canberra. The ship had been the only suitable transport for such a large movement. Originally, transport direct to Singapore was considered, but the damage from aircraft to such valuable asset and so many troops caused a change of plans. Instead, Aquitania departed Sydney on 10th January, reaching Rattay Bay at the Sunda Strait on 20th January, where 3,456 personnel, including some Navy, Air Force, and civilians, were transshipped under a covering naval force to 7 smaller vessels, 6 of them Dutch KPM ships, and would continue to Singapore as convoy MS-2A. Aquitania was returned to Sydney on 31st January. With the United States in the war, Aquitania, then with a troop of capacity of 4,500, had been scheduled for transport duties from the United States to Australia in February, but necessary repairs delayed that because her deep shaft was hazardous in Australian and intermediate ports in the Pacific Islands. She spent March and April 1942 transporting troops from the west coast of the US to Hawaii. Then Aquitania was temporarily transferred from Pacific duties to support the movement of troops from the United States to Britain, sailing 30th April from New York in a large convoy that transported some 19,000 troops. On 12th May 1942, Aquitania loaded troops at Kurok, destined for the war in the Middle East, departing in convoy WS-19P on 1st June with destroyers and heavy weather. She broke off independently on 7th June due to her great speed with designation WS-19Q. The first port of call was 48 hours at Freetown, West Africa on 11th June, then 3 days at Simeonstown, South Africa, 20th June 48 hours at Diego Suarez, Madagascar. From 30th June 24 hours at Steam Point, Aden on July, and disembarkation at Port Tiwik, Fik, Egypt from 8th July 1942. The return journey was via Diego Suarez, Cape Town, Freetown, and then to Boston. By September, Aquitania was engaged in a triangular port deployment of United States to United Kingdom to Indian Ocean voyages. As part of the major redeployment of Australian troops from North Africa to the defense of Australia and start of offensive operations in the Southwest Pacific, Aquitania, Queen Mary, Ile-de-France, New Amsterdam, and the armed merchant cruiser HMS Queen of Bermuda transported the Australian 9th Division to Sydney in Operation Pamphlet during January and February 1943. By the build-up to the invasion of Europe in 1944, troop deployments to Britain depended heavily on Aquitania and other monsters, and no allowance could be made for interruption of their service for other transport requirements. Wartime embarkation at New York is described in some details in the description of the departure of the Special Navy Advance Group 56 or SNAG 56 that was to become Navy Base Hospital number 12 at the Royal Victoria Hospital, Netley, England, to receive casualties from Normandy. The Normandy, which was the D-Day or the attack on Omaha Beach. The unit was sent by devious routes by train to Jersey City, where under cover of darkness they boarded a ferry crossing to the covered Pier 86 in New York, where a band played and the Red Cross served their last coffee and donuts as they boarded NY-40, the New York Port of Embarkation Codes designation for Aquitania, which got underway the morning of 29th January 1944 with some 1,000 Navy, 7,000 Army personnel for arrival at Gourock, Scotland, 5th February. In 8 years of military work, Aquitania sailed more than 500,000 miles and carried nearly 400,000 soldiers to and from places as far afield as New Zealand, Australia, the South Pacific, Greece, and the Indian Ocean. She had even gone to Africa, almost everywhere. Even she had gone to nearly all continents except South America. We now move to our last and final part of this research. We go to the final places of this research: the post-war service and the retirement of this beautiful vessel. And after completing troop service, the vessel was handed back to Cunard and White Star in 1948. She underwent a refit for passenger service. She was then used to transport war brides and their children to Canada under charter from the Canadian government. This final service created a special fondness for Aquitania in Halifax, Nova Scotia, the port of disembarkation for these immigration voyages. On completion of that task in December 1949, Aquitania was taken out of service when the ship's Board of Trade certificate was not renewed, as the condition of the ship had deteriorated and it would have been cost prohibitive to be brought up to new safety standards, namely fire code regulations. The decks leaked in foul weather, the bulkheads and funnels were corroded to a point that one could stick their finger through them. A rumor had been made that a piano had fallen through the roof of one of the dining rooms from the deck above during a corporate luncheon held on the ship. This had been proven to be false. The vessel was retired and sold to British Iron and Steel Corporation for scrap for €125,000 in 1950 at Falls Lane in Scotland. Dismantling took almost a year to complete. This ended a career which included steaming 3 million miles over 450 round voyages. Aquitania carried 1.2 million passengers through an active sea career that spanned nearly 36 years, making her the longest-serving express liner of the 20th century. Aquitania was the major liner and the largest commercial vessel to serve in both wars. She was also the last four-funnel passenger ship to be scrapped. The ship's wheel was a detailed scale model of Aquitania, may be seen in Cunard exhibition at the Maritime Museum of the Atlantic in Halifax. Maritime author N.R.P. Bonza wrote of Aquitania in 1963. Cunard had recovered possession of their veteran in 1948, but she was not worth of reconditioning. In 35 years of service, Aquitania had sailed more than 3 million miles, and apart from one or two earlier island steamliners, no other ship served for as long in single ownership. She continued to be a very fast liner. She continued to be remembered to this day, as we have done in this video. We remember this ocean liner. Let us take a moment to look at the pictures as I will show them. This ship was a nice one. Da 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 do 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 This ship was a great ship. This ship was a great ship. This ship was a great ship. She was a great ship. She was a great ship. She was a great ship. She'll be remembered for all until the time it will end. May we all try and remember this ship. Many people have forgotten this ship. She may be lost or scrapped, her metals nearly rusted in sand, not even able to be remembered, for only a few to remember this. Let us now watch these pictures as they unfold for us. Just a fact, next video we'll be looking at the top 100. No, not yet. We'll cover first the 1900s history of ships. Then after that, we'll look at the top 100 deadliest sinkings in the 20th century from 1900 to 1999. So maybe we can cross Aquitania off the list since it didn't sink even a bit. She was sadly scrapped, but many think she should have remained like the Queen Mary. She had survived a long time. She should have remained in service, keeping the Queen Mary and even Queen Elizabeth too in service. Should have been one of the oldest ships even. You can see in that the Aquitania there at the back in operation pamphlet. Let me move to the next page. We must see these pictures, then I'll end the video from there. Yes, let me just end the video. Let me just do the last pictures showing. Those are that is the steel room that is floating just before I launch. That's flanking the Roosevelt. These are African soldiers of the 366th Infantry who are African American. on board the Aquitania. Mm. Mm. This just shows the passengers who are on board the Aquitania. The next ship you can see is that the Queen Mary. We may look into her maybe in the next video, you never know. But maybe I may say we go to the Berengaria or the SS Imperator. Anyways, guys, thank you for watching this video. I promise to be more formal this next time. This is a just new dressing coat, and I will thank my awesome sponsors, Abbas, Lloyd, Mark, and also Manasseh, his brother, and others, and also Juliet. Thank you so much for watching this video. I think we should I'll thank also we should also try and subscribe, like and subscribe. The more you like or subscribe this video, the more support it gets, and it gives me the urge to continue making these videos. Anyways, thanks guys for watching this video. My name is Ryan Kariba, and until the next one, I'll see you on the next one. Bye. Oh, just before we go, let me just invite my friend, to say bye to also you guys. Come and say goodbye to one. Okay. Here is my friend here. Look at them. Say hi and bye to them. Bye. 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 Say hi. Bye to them. Say bye. Okay. He's saying bye to you. Okay, guys. Until the next one. Oh, sorry about that. Until the next one. Bye. She's saying bye to you. Okay, guys. Bye for now. We'll see you on the